Welcome to episode 197 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby. Stageworthy is a podcast about people in Canadian theatre featuring conversations with actors, directors, playwrights, and more. You know, if you like the podcast, I hope that you'll leave a comment or rating on Apple Podcasts, Google Music, or wherever you get your podcast. Because your ratings and comments do help new people find the show. Or you know what? Even better, if you know somebody that you think will like the show, tell them about it. Because some of my favorite podcasts became my favorites because somebody I knew told me about them. So if you do tell somebody about Stageworthy, let me know about it. You can find Stageworthy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at StageworthyPod, and you can find the website at stageworthypodcast.com. And if you want to drop me a line, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Phil Rickaby, and my website is philrickaby.com. My guest this week is Dylan Trowbridge. Dylan is an actor, director, and playwright, and is the director of Every Brilliant Thing, which is on now at the Festival Players of Prince Edward County until August 17th in Wellington, Ontario. You know, I started our conversation by telling him that he directed two of my favorite Eldritch theater shows, The Harrowing of Brimstone, McReedy, and Space Opera Zero.
Such a combination of really fun collaboration and a lot of heart and depth to the plays. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting because genre is something that is not attempted in the theater very often. Mm-hmm. And so to do horror and to do science fiction requires a certain amount of creativity and an understanding of how to get around the limitations of theater. So
yeah.
I thought those were the solutions in both of those pieces were really clever and great.
Yeah, well, something Eric Wolf understands and something he and I have really connected on is that we have an obligation to entertain people, mm-hmm. and it almost for a while it seemed like that was like a bad word or a bad concept, but it's so important that whatever you're trying to do in the theater, that there is an element of actually entertaining people and making people have a fun or moving or thrilling night out.
I do think that sometimes in the past we have lost sight of that.
Yeah.
I know I worked with a company called Keystone Theatre for several years. We did plays in the style of silent film, which were very entertaining. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a lot of, I think in some eyes, they didn't have enough depth to be considered theater. Just entertaining.
Right.
There's something about we should entertain first.
Yeah, and it is really possible to do both. And that should be the challenge when we're making plays, especially when we're making them from scratch, that we have an eye on both delivering something that is entertaining and work that has something to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think sometimes we forget about the entertaining.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Which is really too bad.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this show.
Okay.
This show is every little thing.
Every brilliant thing. Yeah,
thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Every brilliant thing.
Yeah.
So tell me about Every Brilliant Thing.
Oh, well, I'll tell you how I came to it first. I saw a magnificent production of a play called Lungs here at the Tarragon. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, mm-hmm. and it got me curious about this playwright Duncan Macmillan, mm-hmm. and so I started, because my work with Theatrefront, with whom I'm an associate, I read a lot of plays, and so I went down a bit of a Duncan Macmillan rabbit hole couple of years ago, and I found this play, and was excited because it was a play that was inherently going to be different every night, mm-hmm. a play in which the audience was forced to be active, and a play that I felt had a lot to say and was very funny, and was very producible, which is great for Theatrefront because it was just one performer. And so around that same time, I had begun working with Graham Abbey in Prince Edward County, and I contacted him to tell him that I thought it could be a good fit for our audience there.
Mm-hmm. And he obviously agreed.
Yeah, he did. It took programming a season of theater in Prince Edward County is difficult because it's an evolving audience. There are local people who have lived there for decades. There are rural people. There are urban tourists passing through. There's the Drake Devonshire crowd. And so we need to find work that can appeal to a wide spectrum of people. And so our first play, Outside Mullingar, was a very rural play, very funny, beautiful John Patrick Shanley play. And this is something that's a little more experimental in form, but equally crowd pleasing potentially, I think.
It seems to me like with that mixed audience, programming the season must be particularly challenging.
It took a long time, and it took a lot of reading and a lot of trial and error, and like putting together a menu of things and then switching something because something just didn't feel right. We landed on this season at the 11th hour, the night before our big board meeting in which we had to present the season, and everything just fell into place. And we also brought in Behrman Sneakus to do a 2-night run of their script tease project with I don't know if you know what that is, but that's. So they commission a playwright to write the first 2 pages of a play, and then the rest is improvised, a full-length play that's improvised. So Kat Sanders writing the first 2 pages of a play for us, and Raymond Story's doing the other night.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
What are the sensibilities that you're trying to balance? What are the things that you look for in a play when you're trying to put together a season like that?
So the first thing is what we were talking about earlier. These people, many of them are on vacation. They're at the beach. They're at a winery. So it's something that is going to entertain them. But then it's the challenge. The thing that makes it take a really long time is that it also has to have something to say. It has to be something that's going to engage creative people in a way that it excites them. So it has to be the right amount of challenging, the right amount of depth and heart, but ultimately entertaining. Sandy Becker is here with me too. She's the stage manager, and she was the stage manager for the 2 plays you referenced earlier, The Harrowing of Brimstone, McReedy, and Space Opera Zero.
We spoke about The Harrowing of Brimstone
McReedy
a time ago.
Sandy is, hopefully I will embarrass her, but Sandy is a brilliant stage manager, but also a very important collaborator for me, and someone who makes every play better.
That's not embarrassing at all.
What in terms of that, when in the room, sometimes people are like, the director is the lone voice and everybody else is subservient to that. How do you see the stage manager as a collaborator in the room?
It evolves from project to project, but with Sandy's really smart and has really good ideas and has a brain that is very different from mine. And I think my job as a director is never to come up with all the ideas; it's to identify all the ideas, and so having an open dialogue, and I think having the confidence to allow other ideas in the room, ideas that may be better than the ideas I brought in. That's what excites me. I'm an actor by trade. That's why I came up as an actor. But what excites me about this new venture into directing that I've been taking on for the last few years is that I get to connect with other people and get excited about their ideas. Collaborating and bouncing ideas is extremely satisfying for me. So, yeah.
Well, I think I do think there's like two different types of directors: those who just like to their idea, and people who are more collaborative.
Yeah. Both can work. I've been in rooms where it was very clear who was in charge, and that other ideas weren't encouraged. And some of the best shows I've done have been in those rooms, but also some of the most horrific, traumatic, unpleasant experiences I've had in the theater have generally been in that kind of room. So
I've had similar experiences, but my favorites are the ones where when there's a question, the director sometimes says like, "You know what? I don't know. We should." What do you guys think?
I had a big day yesterday where I was wrong repeatedly yesterday about things, and I was very proud of myself for identifying quite quickly that I was wrong about something I had suggested and backing off of it. But it was just a day where that kind of just kept happening. So, and that's okay too.
I mean, I guess there's a certain how you deal with being wrong. Says a lot about you as a director. Like, you could double down and assume that the actor is wrong. Or you could just acknowledge that no, I was wrong. That's
the thing. You can't tell until you see it in the room, right? And so I'm a big believer in impulse, and if I have an impulse in a moment, I need to see it, and then I'll know, and I can let it go forever. And I appreciate actors who are the same. I like being contradicted. I like being challenged because I actually think through arguing, or creatively arguing, we get to the most exciting choices or responses.
Do you find that kind of conversation in a rehearsal hall is rare?
I don't know. I have. Like, historically, I have found that to be rare, but I'm finding more and more that there is that people are encouraging an open dialogue, that in a controlled environment, people contributing ideas where maybe they wouldn't have many years ago. I'm finding more and more of that. Partly because I'm directing more than I'm acting in stage right now. Like, most of my acting is television and film now, where that's a completely different situation altogether. But the rooms I'm in have been fairly collaborative for the most part over the last, say, 5 years.
That's good. I asked because I noticed, there's been a lot of conversation in the last little while about how we are teaching acting to people who are coming up. And I know when I was in theater school, the idea of arguing with a director would have been, we were so afraid of rocking the boat and just like, do what they say, shut up.
Yeah. I think that one of the greatest things your job as a director is to find a way for the actor to do things with conviction, and they will be able to do their ideas with conviction because it is authentically coming from them. So if your idea really contradicts theirs, you need to take them to the place where they can do it with conviction, and if they can't, you need to find a different route.
I want you to go with me and sort of think back here, because one of the things I always like to know is, like, where did this theater thing start for you? When did you decide, or what was your first exposure, or when did it become a thing that you were going to do?
I could say I was pretty, like, I think a lot of actors and directors say this, but I was a fairly quiet, shy kid, and I didn't have a thing. I didn't have a thing that I felt good at. I was sort of average at sports, and I wasn't amazing at school. And then when I went to high school, I did drama and acted at a play, and I felt kind of good at it. I kind of got it, and then I think I did a play in front of an audience for the first time, as opposed to just in the classroom. And I came off, and my heart was racing, and the adrenaline was pumping, and I felt very positive. And that became an addiction in a positive way. That feeling, that rush, became something that I pursued and wanted to do, and it just carried through into, I started working professionally when I was 18, and just sort of kept going from there.
Do you know how old you were around that first time?
The first time I would have been maybe 14? 15 maybe, something like that.
Had you seen theater before that?
Not really, no. Like, my high school did plays, and I think I maybe a little bit, but not really, no. I hadn't been exposed. I grew up in Vancouver. I didn't go see plays at the Arts Club or things like that when I was a teenager. It just sort of, I did it for fun, and then it sort of hooked me and became an addiction.
Do you know when you figured out it was a thing that you could, like, make your vocation?
I went to Queen's University to study politics, and by the end of that first week, I had switched my major to theater. And I was there with people like, I don't know if you'll know these people, but really great directors and actors: Daryl Cloran, Christopher Morris, Holly Lewis, Shane Cardy. We were all in the same year together, and we really connected. And so we pushed each other, and we all auditioned for whatever summer theaters we could as teenagers from Kingston. So I auditioned for this Shakespeare in the Park company in Montreal called Repercussion Theatre. And I ended up working there several summers through the late 90s as I was learning to act. And acting outdoors became a real training ground for me, having to deliver Shakespeare in the elements like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So going to school for something other than acting didn't last long. I know some people who are like, I lasted a semester.
Yeah, 1 week.
1 week, wow. Yeah. Was there any pushback on the change at all? Or like for either from the school or from family?
No, there it wasn't. Maybe I don't really remember, but I don't recall having much pushback. It was at the time it seemed like maybe something I was doing on a whim and would come around. But it was decisive. It was pretty decisive. Like I said, I wasn't really great at anything else, and I don't know that I was great at that, but I felt great about it. It made me feel good, and so yeah. I mean, it's a funny thing because we all have 18-year-olds in charge of our life decisions, right? At one point, right? So
that's very true.
So this 18 or 7, I was 17. This 17-year-old was making decisions for me that have led to a certain inevitable path for me.
Did you ever have, when you were in school? Did any, like in high school when you were like? I guess no, because you were going into politics. So for the guidance counselor, that made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Whereas I know a lot of people have been like, you tell the guidance counselor that you want to be an actor, and they're like,
yeah,
maybe an English major.
Yeah,
you know?
I was like, I wanted to be the prime minister. I'm not kidding. I did. I wanted to be the prime minister. So I was going to study politics. I was going to learn French, and I was going to go to law school. And then I just said, that's not me. That's not me. So,
was there something about that first week of school that made you realize it wasn't you, or was it just like...
The truth is, and I haven't really said this to many people, I hated it. I got to Queen's, and everyone, and sorry Queen's, I love you. You've been, if anyone from Queen's is listening, the people I met at Queen's and the experience ultimately ended up being great. But that first week, there was this tidal wave of enthusiasm that I did not connect with. I had moved from downtown Vancouver, where I felt connected and inspired, to Kingston, which is a beautiful town, but which I didn't connect with because it was a smaller city than I had been used to. And so I felt like, okay, I need to take control of something here. Yeah. And so during that week, I asked a lot of questions and figured out it was possible for me to switch what I was studying, and it was a decisive switch.
Were you asking questions almost like from day one?
Yeah, I was totally. Yeah.
Because you said that you lasted a week, but it sounds like almost like you went in and were almost like, nah.
Well, because there's the Frosh week, right? Yeah. So it was that orientation week, whereas it was Frosh week, and then the first couple of days of classes, and I thought, no, this is not going to work. This is not fun and not exciting, and it's a path I'm not interested in.
So you did Frosh week?
I did, very reluctantly.
Yeah. I was almost, because I went to a college, and so there wasn't really a Frosh. I was so grateful.
Yeah.
The story I'd ever heard about a Frosh week was like, why would I want to do that?
Yeah. And I just wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know what I was walking into. And you're 17 years old and you're in a different town, a different province, don't know anybody, in a tiny little room in a dorm, and it's arresting. So I guess all of that did lead to that switch, and maybe if I was in a more comfortable environment, I would have slowly made my way to becoming the prime minister instead.
Have you ever considered those sliding doors that where you would be if you had continued in the?
Yeah, I totally have. Yeah, I totally have, especially during the Harper years. No, I have, and I'm fascinated by politics, but. I've sort of imagined what that could have been a few times, but
I'm a little bit curious about what you, as a kid who was doing like theater, and that was the thing that you were good at. What was it that made you decide that or at least start going towards the politics angle? Aside from
I don't know. I guess it's like expectations. It's sort of like, I was doing well in school, and I should really try to do something that everyone else will think is significant. And it wasn't parental expectations or anything like that. It was just kind of self expectations. My grandfather, when I was a little kid, said, "You're going to be prime minister one day," and I think I took that to heart. So I didn't take it as pressure, but it was something to aspire to. And he saw something, or maybe he didn't, but he said something like that. So,
because there's something about when you're in school and you're surrounded by people who are like, I'm going to be a banker, I'm going to be like, all these things are going to be, I'm going to study this, I'm going to study that, and I come around to you and you're the only person who's saying, I'm going to be an actor, which makes you feel a little bit self-conscious and difficult to actually admit to it.
I guess so, but I think at the same time, when you're a young person, you want to be different. Mm-hmm. You want to grab onto those things that make you different from everyone else.
Sure.
And I probably did a little bit of that. Maybe
I always wanted to be different, but not
too different.
Not too different.
Yeah.
And just to be the only person in the room that was actually thinking about being an actor was a little bit too different.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
At what point did you start going from making the move from acting to directing?
So when I first came out of school, I did a lot of assistant directing, mostly with that company, Repercussion Theatre in Montreal. And then I ended up at the Shaw Festival for years, and so my focus was acting exclusively. When I got back, I did a play in the West End about 10 years ago. And when I got back from that, because that was 3 years in total, I did it for 2 years in Toronto and a year in the West End, doing Dirty Dancing. Mm-hmm. After that experience, which was really fun, but not high art, mm-hmm. I think I took stock of where I was at, and I decided that I wanted to add directing to what I do for a living. And so I guess about 9-10 years ago, I made a decisive switch to that. But it wasn't until Eric Wolf, mm-hmm. Who is a very whimsical and impulsive hirer, mm-hmm. Sent me.
Sandy knows.
We had mostly met in audition situations. We'd known each other peripherally for a long time, and always kind of, I think, got along well in those limited interactions. But I got a message from him in 2016 mm-hmm. that just read, "What is your favorite horror movie?" And I had no clue why he was asking, but I really like horror movies, and my knowledge of them is definitely not as sophisticated as Eric's. But I think I replied Halloween, and I said, but Scream is my guilty pleasure. Mm. I love the Scream movies, which I know, and I'm surprised that didn't turn Eric off. But he followed up with information. He might have asked a few more questions, and then he said, "Okay, because we're doing this Gold Rush Klondike horror Yukon play with puppetry and magic." And I was aware of the plays that Eric was doing, and I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I think we've lost our director, and I know you've been talking about wanting to direct more. Would you be interested in talking about this?" And I said, "Yes, I would love to." And he and I started meeting, and I was honored and thrilled and surprised to be asked, and then we worked on that fall, and I loved every second of it. It was after a long time of not feeling artistically fulfilled. Something was ignited in me through that, and it sounds. I mean it. I mean what I'm saying. It sounds like I'm trying to praise Eric, but he is amazing, and it was extremely satisfying and fun, and led to Space Opera Zero, which was a lot of fun too.
How much did you know of, it sounds like all you knew was that it was horror with puppets.
Well, I got a script pretty quickly. Okay. I really did have an understanding of the kind of work Eric was doing, and I read it, and the opening text was in iambic pentameter, which immediately sparked my curiosity and my interest. Yeah. And it was scary and haunting and funny and everything I said at the beginning. It was something that is like, this is going to be entertaining, but it's also got guts and heart and yearning. And I actually couldn't believe that this person I didn't really know, who had never seen me direct anything, on a whim on Facebook was entrusting me with this great script that he had written, and it is a great script. Eric Wolf is writing scripts as good as anyone else in this country, and so I felt like I kind of felt like I was getting away with something pretty significant by being asked, and we laughed a lot, and we did again in Space Opera Zero, and I wish all processes, is that right, Sandy? Plural of processes. I wish all.
I will accept both.
Okay.
Processes.
Okay. Well, let's go with whatever Sandy says. We're really fun and satisfying, and I can't wait till the next one.
In terms of like the kind of stuff that Eric writes, I think that I wish that more people were seeing what he was doing, because both of those plays, like I consider it like one of the best seats, although some people might say it's the worst. Like to be one for the Harrowing, to be like on one of the seats right beside Eric, one of the foils for some of the magic, and it was just such a great spot to be in, such an intense. Proximity
in theater is something that I love, and something that I try to integrate wherever and whenever possible. So in this play as well, that's a huge thing. Our space is tiny. There are 60 seats, and I've tried to embed the action in the audience a little bit, because I like we have to do things in the theater that film and television cannot do. Otherwise, there's no point. We can't do movies on stage because we can't do that as well as film and television can. So what we can do is we can put an audience member and an actor in very close proximity, and we can thrill them just by that proximity, by exposing them to that, and by forcing the actor to have to fulfill the truth that proximity demands.
I think that can be a frightening thing for an actor. We're used to thinking about our interaction with the audience is they're over there and I can't really see them. And it can be a frightening thing to have a scene where you need the audience in there, your scene partner, and that sort of thing.
Well, that's a huge part of this play, Every Brilliant Thing. The audience is essential, not just as witness to the action, but as participants.
I think that the best solo plays are ones that need the audience in that way, because otherwise, if the audience isn't your scene partner, you're talking at them, and then it feels like it's a shitty TED talk.
Totally. It feels like a lecture.
Whereas if you're connecting with people, know when you're looking at them. And that's something we don't often do in the theater, and so I think it's almost a thrill for the actor and the audience to have that happen.
And it's unpredictable too, because you don't know. It's unpredictable on both sides of it. You don't know what's coming at you, you know, as the actor or as the audience. And I love it, and it's scary, and it's something that I try to find a way to integrate that into everything I direct somehow. So
it's always interesting because you're right. You don't know what the actor is going to get from the audience member, because you can like try to make eye contact with somebody who's just like no, your eyes just slide off them, and so you have to decide: am I going to force this, or just go on to somebody else?
And it's not for everyone. There are audience members who just will never, who love theater, who will never enjoy an experience as active as we ask of them in this play and in some of the Eric Wolf plays. But we can't cater to everyone, and it's a thrill. So, what do you think, Sandy? Do you like?
I'm so sorry, I was distracted by an email.
That's okay.
I think that you know, talking about Eric, he's in an interesting position where he has a particular audience that comes out for him who are not regular theater goers, and I think if anything, he's teaching them, if they do go to the theater, they're going to have a different he's teaching them lessons about participation in theater and proximity and things like that. Although his audience is largely made up of people who are not theater people.
The opening night of the Harrowing of Brimstone McReedy, I took Eric aside. Probably not before, it's probably after the show, and I said, "This is so weird." And he said, "What is it?" And I said, "This is the first time I've ever been at an opening in Toronto where there were no theater people. The audience was just people who have jobs that are not in the theater. I was the only person in the audience who was a theater person was me."
there is a certain mood to an open night audience that's full of theater people that you don't find in the other audience. There's a lot more talking and waving at people and like moving around. Every opening full of theater people I've ever been at is starting like at least 10 minutes late. Because everybody's too busy talking. It's a social thing, and that's that's great in a way. And I only really know theater people, and theater people are great. But the fact that Eric has cultivated an audience of people he does not know that do not work in the theater, there's something there to be learned, I think, from other theaters. I think so too, because it's one of those questions people are always asking: where's our audience going? Like, how do we reach people? And I think there are people who found ways to reach people, and it's not by saying the same thing over and over.
Yeah, well, and it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It is. It's fun and it's thrilling, and it sounds simplistic or superficial, but it's great to make theater fun, and it's hard to make theater fun.
Yeah.
That's what Eric always says. Theater is not vegetables.
I know. Eric always says theater.
It's not about eating your broccoli.
It's not about eating your broccoli.
You eat it because it's good
Yeah,
for you.
it
You
shouldn't
wanna eat
be.
it because it tastes good.
It shouldn't be health food, right? And that doesn't, and making it fun does not make it any less substantial too.
No, I think I've seen a lot of stuff over the last little while where I feel like they have a message and they definitely want you to not miss it.
Yeah.
So you leave feeling like you've been hit in the head a bunch of times.
Yeah.
But you didn't particularly enjoy the experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all well and good to have a message, but if you're not entertained while it's happening, as we've said, it's just like, why did I spend an hour and a half to 2 hours with you?
Yeah. Why? Like, let me read a really great article about this topic or something. And I think very dark things, they can be entertaining and thrilling as well. It's a challenge, but it's one worth taking on.
But I mean, that's why people go to horror movies. People go to horror movies because they're entertained in a certain way, not necessarily just because they don't. I think if they weren't entertained, they wouldn't go at all.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So if we're asking people to leave their house for a message, they're not going to do it.
Well, like this play is a brilliant piece of writing because it is about a topic as dark as pretty much as you can possibly get. A child's exposure to his mother's repeated suicide attempts. Within that, it is one of the funniest, most curious pieces of writing I have ever encountered. And that's what we need to ask our writers to pursue, that kind of complexity and that kind of duality.
Well, because I mean, you could deal with that for a long time, like the child's exposure to his mother's repeated suicide attempts, and be very serious about it, and nobody would want to watch it.
Yeah,
because if we don't laugh, we have no connection.
Yeah, and I think even this play could be interpreted in such a way that it's taken extremely seriously and very darkly, and I don't think that would serve the story properly. Right, Sandy?
You're trying to drag Sandy in.
Well, Sandy's very involved because the play involves interaction with human beings who we don't always have in the room. Sandy's been an actor in this process as well, which has been a lot of fun to watch.
My favorite thing to do.
Well, Sandy, what's that like? Because you're not usually in that position.
I mean, I'm not usually in that position, except that I work with Eric all the time, and I so. No, I'm not, but yes, I am. And I used to, I've done tech for improv, and so I'm comfortable in that world, so I'm not freaked out by it.
But it's not where you want to be.
It's not where I particularly want to be, and I'm very, very happy when we have runs when people come in to watch, and I don't have to do the things.
But she's really good at it. But that's part of it. Like with this show, I knew when Graham approved this play. I think my first email message was to Sandy because this is a weird beast of a play that requires improvisation and interaction and a lot of the distribution of a lot of items in places that are different every night, and so I knew Sandy was the right person to take that on. So
I'm still not embarrassed. You're gonna have to say more nice things.
Well, I mean, Sandy, I think sometimes a stage manager can feel a little removed from the process, and they're just there to take notes and make sure that things happen. And then there are other shows which require you to be really invested in and a part of the process.
Yes.
Do you have a preference?
Do I have a preference?
Yeah.
Well, I really like actors, and I really like to be with actors and near actors and around actors. And if I didn't, why am I doing this job? It's funny because I've just come off of a show where I was incredibly distanced from the performers because the performers were all deaf. And I signed some, but not fluently.
Right.
And so I couldn't have the relationship with the cast that I normally have. And I found that very lonely and very challenging. So this is great. To come into this room and be like, okay, first of all, there's only one of them. So that's nice. And I if Gavin and I are buddies, then that's even better.
Yeah.
But it's been a huge relief to have to be like, oh yes, okay, people I can talk to, people I can use the same language as. Not that I didn't like the other actors; they're all wonderful, lovely people. But it's just a much easier way to be in the world of theater, and it's certainly where I'm more comfortable and where I live better. So I think the answer is that I prefer this way, but I want to learn to get better at that way.
Rehearsing a show that just has one actor.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes it can be more daunting than a show that has a number of actors.
Yeah.
If you're looking at like an 8-hour day when it's just like a director, a stage manager, and an actor, how do you fill that day without everybody being completely exhausted?
Yeah, it is a big challenge, and something that going into it, the very first day I said to Gavin, okay, you need to regulate what's being asked of you as well, and we need to negotiate and sort of improvise what our plan will be from day to day. But it's harder because with a multiple actor cast, there are more conversations to be had. I find myself in this room sometimes out of ideas for that day, when that happens, I just try to articulate it. Say, look, I'm at a point now where I'm not sure what we need to work on, and we just have a conversation about it. But and it's a weird play because the play just flows once you start. There aren't a lot of natural places to jump in, so it's a hard thing to work without just starting at the top and working right through. But Gavin's been really adaptable and really articulate about what he wants to work on so it's just identifying from day to day what the trouble spots are we need to look at, or if it's a day where we need to do a run, that kind of thing.
But I mean, this is not the first time that you've done a show with just one actor. The Harrowing was Eric, a bunch of puppets, and you. So.
Yeah, and that was different in a way because the bunch of puppets kind of felt like a cast. Like they really do. I'm like, sometimes I would find myself giving the notes to a puppet or to one of you start to think that way.
Do you remember the day in tech when I lost my temper with? I think it was Soapy.
Yes.
Like I yelled at one of the puppets.
Yeah.
I was so mad because Eric was messing around and he was like, and I was like, Soapy, I swear to God.
Yeah. No, they start to feel real. Yeah. And also Eric, that play specifically was very clearly divided into 5 acts with specific scenes. So I could say, you know what, let's figure out Act 2 today, and let's but this play is a different creature in that sense. But yeah, working with one actor, I actually love it, and it's something I've done quite a bit of. But you can't just apply one strategy on how to work with an actor to any process. No. You have to be very adaptable.
Yeah. Do you find that at those when you're out of ideas, do you take a break?
Usually I tell Gavin to go smoke a cigarette, and then I ask Sandy what we should do. I've said this to Sandy, and I think she agrees. I'm a pretty obsessive person, and I tend to have a long list of things I want to do, and so part of it is when I'm out of ideas and that list has been ticked off, I recognize that as a positive thing. And similar to when it's important to say I don't know the answer or I was wrong, to say right now I don't have an idea. I don't have a strategy for the next hour. I don't know what we should do. Let's talk about that. It's breaking this hierarchy of the way theater works, and it's the great thing about theater is that it is a collaboration, and there has to be someone who's more or less calling the shots and has a final say. But the more it can be a dialogue between multiple artists, for me, the better, because usually the best idea will emerge by some collision of two things that people are thinking, I think.
Today, as we record this, it was your first stumble through. I think
it was actually our second.
Stumble through.
Yeah, we did one on day 6, and today's day 8. We did, so yeah.
Stumble through is always like a frightening thing.
Yeah.
For I know the actors. I don't know about from your point of view. How going into this stumble through? What point? Where do you think you're at?
I feel like we are at a really positive middle point where a great foundation has been laid. The template that we've laid is right. I feel really good about that. So now it's about repetition, about going deeper, but I don't think it's about cracking it open and changing the course we're on. And that's very assuring because we have, what day is it today? Tuesday. So we have 4 more days in the rehearsal hall, 3 days of tech. So I think we're in a great spot. I watched this run through this afternoon as a riveted audience member, and I say that completely authentically. I was engaged and laughing and having a great time. I think the little few invited guests we had were enjoying themselves. So I'm feeling confident and positive and curious.
Is this your first season at the
Festival Players? This is actually my 3rd season. 2017, it was announced that Graham Abbey was the named artistic director. I've known Graham for 25 years. I immediately, as I was reading the announcement, I was emailing him because I was at that point very aware of the region and of its potential for magnificence, and very aware of Graham and his ambition and his talent. And for me, the combination of those two things seemed like something I really wanted to be a part of. And I basically said that to him in the email. He replied quickly saying sort of what the rough plans were for that season. I went into that season thinking I would be an actor, but they sent me an offer that was an acting track and an associate directing track. So I acted in one play and I associate directed all the plays. And we had a great time, a lot of fun. I fell in love with the region. And the next year I went back just as an associate director on The Drawer Boy. So I worked with Graham on that. And then that solidified our sort of partnership. And from that point on, he and I were planning this season and hiring. And so an associateship sort of developed naturally out of last season's work on The Drawer Boy. And now I'm the associate artistic director there. And very invested and inspired by that company and by its potential to be a major destination theater.
Well, it's an interesting area, the Prince Edward County. You do have the Drake Devonshire, and now they've opened a motel.
Yeah, the Drake has a motel down the street from us as well. Yeah,
and also just the wine region and the apples and everything is so much.
Yeah,
there.
The beach.
I think that from here, from in Toronto, when we're thinking of getaways, I think we often think north. We think north, as we don't think Eastern Southern Ontario in the same way that maybe we should. Yeah, as a place that is beautiful and a place to go.
Yeah, it's honestly, I was stunned. I knew I had heard and read about Prince Edward County. I went to start work there, and I remember I rode my bike from the house I was staying to where we were rehearsing. I was this is very beautiful. This is nice, through Wellington, gorgeous town. My first day off, I went to Sandbanks, and with my son. And we both kind of looked around, and it was this pristine, beautiful, soft sand and crystal clear water, and nothing else. People, but nothing, no businesses. It was very untouched and gorgeous. And I suddenly what I knew was a beautiful place to visit, I suddenly realized was one of my favorite spots in Ontario. And so that the inspiration and excitement I already had for the county and the theatre company kind of doubled, and my whole family loves it there now. So
I grew up in Belleville.
So you did?
I know the Sandbanks was like our beach.
Yeah.
So
right.
Spent a lot of time out there.
Okay.
What comes next after this show?
So after this show, we start discussing our plans for 2020. But my sort of main day-to-day work when I'm not directing is auditioning for and occasionally doing film and television. So I'll get back into that routine. I've got a play I'm directing in the winter that hasn't been announced yet, so I'm not allowed to say. I wish I could. But I'll be back directing early January, and I think I can say that, I'm sure I can, that the Harrowing of Brimstone McReedy is coming back for a limited run.
Adriana has said that several times.
Okay, good.
I know that he's doing it in Kick and Push.
Yes, he is.
And I have been telling people since I loved it last time, I've been telling everybody that I can. He's doing it again. You missed it last time.
Yeah.
You dare miss it this time.
Yeah, and it's a limited run back at the Red Sandcastle, and we want to pack it every night because it deserves it. I think it's only a week or something we're running, so
it really does deserve it.
Yeah. And Eric and Eldritch and Sandy and I have a few other projects in development, so there's a lot going on there. Theater, I'm working with Theatrefront constantly, so we've got a play in development with Jason Maganoy. That we're really excited about big data, which is really cool. And Vicky and I have a few things on the horizon for the 2020 season as well. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So busy time.
Always busy. Like between the festival players and Theatrefront and the work with Eldritch, there's lots of the work I love that keeps me really busy. And then every once in a while I find myself on a film set, and that's fun too. So, but I would love to start acting in plays again. That's been a couple of years for me, and I really do enjoy that. I think people think because I'm directing and doing film and TV that's not something I want to do, but I really do. I really love it. So
it's funny because I think that some people think, like film and television, that's where you want to be. But everybody I know who does both is like theater, like film and television's fine, but theater's the best.
Film and television is great. Theater, you get to rehearse and you get an audience.
That's the thing.
And and film and TV, you depriving the actor of rehearsal and an audience just automatically makes it less satisfying.
Yeah.
It's sometimes when you watch it, you're kind of blown away and it's really exciting after the fact. But it separates the acting from the event. Yeah. And theater integrates the acting and the event into one moment, and there's nothing like it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a great spot to end. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you very much.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.